a welcome home they deserved. My grandpa is a Vietnam War veteran, and growing up as a kid, he would always show me pictures and tell me stories about his time in the war. However, I noticed times where he had bad nightmares, he got startled very easily, or he lashed out pretty angrily. And for several years now, my grandpa has been attending a PTSD Vietnam War veteran breakfast every week on Thursday. With these men, they have helped each other more than anyone else ever could with what they have gone through. Post-traumatic stress disorder, sometimes known as shell shock or combat stress, occurs after experiencing severe trauma or a life-threatening event, and this research was found by Melinda. PTSD in veterans develop differently for each person and sometimes doesn't surface for months or even years after they return from deployment. They can experience vivid memories from the war in forms of nightmares or distressing flashbacks like my grandpa did. Some tend to avoid anything that will remind them of the war, including people, places, thoughts, or even situations they pair with bad memories. They can show a negative change in emotion, mood, or behavior, and they may be on guard all the time, which includes being jumpy and emotionally reactive. And this research was also found by Melinda. Now, these men aren't the only people who have to attend groups for help on their control. Their wives, too, deal with PTSD. PTSD from their husbands. They are the people who see it at first hand, what their husbands are going through, and this can be traumatic for the women. The women, too, go to the breakfast, but they sit at another table separate from their husbands, and they just talk to one another. They talk about experiences they have seen or had with their husbands where they have witnessed some symptoms they had with PTSD, or they just talk about anything just to get their minds off of some of the bad times they have to deal with their husbands. I'm about to show you a video about a story of a husband and wife and how the wife tries to understand and help what the husband is going through with PTSD.
My name is Terry, and I served in the United States Navy from 1992 to 1993. I'm married to a veteran who was injured in Somalia. He was shot. Jim, he has PTSD, and he's been dealing with PTSD since he was shot. And he started going to therapy. When we met, we actually went to therapy a couple times together at the Long Beach VA. And that's, what really helped me understand PTSD much better and how it affected him and our relationship and things that we could do to, make it better. We have 5 kids. So he had 2 from his previous marriage, and I had 2, and then we had 1 together. It's really important to explain to the kids what's going on and let them know this is nothing that they're doing. Before.
So I personally really related to this video because, being connected to this story about Vietnam War veterans and being related with my grandpa and multiple other grandchildren. My grandma, shown on this slide right here to the right of me, has also had to talk to me and my 2 other cousins about some things we have seen, mood behavior, mood changes with my grandpa, and she just has to try to help us understand that it's nothing we're doing wrong. He just thinks about things and gets frustrated and unfortunately takes it out on others. But, she too goes to the breakfast sometimes, not every week, but she tries to go as much as she can because it helps her as well to talk to the other women and talk about what they're going through. Apart from the veterans struggling with PTSD, they also struggle with several other bottled up emotions that they have carried with them since the war. The Vietnam War was the most hated on war. Protesting against the Vietnam War brought attention to the draft on May 5, 1965. Student activists at the University of California started off the protest by burning draft cards out in the open. This act of burning the draft cards started to spread due to a student-led group called National Coordinating Committee to End the War in Vietnam, and this research was found by Wikimedia Foundation. This kind of behavior spread throughout the country in the next 3 years. But the worst of the hate for the war was started by Jane Fonda. Multiple headlines read how Jane Fonda became one of the most hated people associated with the war. Around 1972, Jane Fonda focused her political activism on the anti-war movement. The veterans will only refer to her as her most famous nickname, Hanoi Jane. Fonda went to tour North Vietnam in a controversial trip that made her well known across the globe. During this trip, a photograph was taken of Jane seated on an anti-aircraft gun in Hanoi, making it look like she would shoot down American planes. At the time, Jane's public criticism of her American leadership created outrage among American officials and war vets, and this research was found by Gojanian. After all the protests and the hate was brought to the public eye, the veterans were not welcome home with any respect. They were welcomed home with nothing but negativity. One of the veterans that I got to spoke to at the breakfast, Glenn, told me that they were spit on when they were arriving back. All he can remember is angry people yelling at them, spitting on them, and throwing anything they could find. My grandpa, too, shared these awful memories with me. But with all the negativity that is carried with both the Vietnam War and the Vietnam veterans, many people fail to truly understand what these men have gone through. The brotherhood these men carry for one another is a bond that can never be broken. I'm now going to share with you a little piece of the interview that I had with the founder of this, Sam Hayes. I'm going to try as much as I can for you guys to hear this off of my phone, but it's a little piece of his story on how they came to be the breakfast they are today.
Now, at veterans,
Okay.
and they had it once a week. Then they changed it to once every 2 weeks. Then they changed it to once every 3 weeks. And that wasn't.
I'm getting ready to leave.
We weren't.
She's got to
it
get
wasn't
back to
helping us
school.
at all.
Yeah.
So we went out, and first we went over to the museum, and they let us use the museum. And then the guy goes on vacation. He goes to Florida. Doesn't tell us anything. So I came here and I asked if we could have a meeting here at the VFW. I don't know. That's been a long time. 6 or 7, maybe 8 years.
Wow.
But we started off at the museum and ended up here, and we all just sit together and just talk.
Alright, so he goes on to talk about the process of creating this group and talks about all the obstacles that they had to overcome to realize that the best and only hope they needed was from each other. He also goes on to talk about how, like, when they first started with the Veterans Associations, they would only meet once a month, and then, like, once a month turned into maybe once every 2 months, and that was not helping them whatsoever, and the only answers they needed, like I said, was from each other. No one would be able to tell them really, truly how they should be feeling because, the people at the association haven't been through it themselves. But as an outsider to this group, they welcomed me in with open arms. They were excited that someone like me, someone young, was even interested in hearing their story because no one ever asks, especially the real story, not apart from all the hate from the media they got at that time. The men greeted me with big smiles and gave me numerous articles, photographs, a bracelet, a hat, and magazines, both for me to look at and take with me. And shown on the screen is some photographs I got to look at and keep, and all their cool medals and everything. And Sam Hayes, the creator, gave me a little army green hat with his helicopter on it that he got to fly. But after years of trying to receive help from multiple organizations, I'm glad to say that these men finally received the help they needed from each other. And thank you.